Very often, when we need to correct an issue within QuickBooks, we're tempted to actually create a journal entry. QuickBooks recommends that instead of creating a journal entry, that you actually go back to the original form and edit it there. Let's go to an invoice and let's go to our prior screen. What you need to keep in mind that there are a number of entries that are actually linked together because of this invoice. For example, this invoice will be linked to the payments, to any credit memos that are applied. A bill may be linked to the bill payments or the credits that are applied. All of the bills then are actually going to be passed along to our customer. There's a lot of activity going behind the scenes for this one invoice. That's why we recommend that rather than creating journal entries, that you actually go back to the originating form, issue a credit memo if you wish to change an invoice. Issue a credit memo if you wish to reduce a bill. If I'm looking at a transaction, at any given time I can see all the journal entries in the background. We would normally go to Reports, and when we're looking at the Reports menu, we'll go straight down to Transaction History. Again, I prefer to always put these right on my toolbar. When I go to the transaction history, you will see all of the entries that are tied together. Here's a perfect example of where I have linking going on. You'll notice that I was looking at an invoice, but it automatically brought up the estimate. The estimate reminds me of what the number was, has my customer, and then tells me the accounts that have been affected. If I'm creating journal entries, I may be able to change the construction income account. However, it really needs to be changed in the underlying estimate also. Remember, when QuickBooks is closing off forms, if this form is not closed out, if each entry has not been billed out, it remains open waiting for you to bill the customer. If, however, I change my estimate, issue a credit, it would roll over into the invoice so that I can ensure that all the transactions in the background are going to be correct. Now, of course, there's quite a bit of detail that could go into the actual journal entry itself. Because of this, if we're editing by creating just a journal, it could result in mistakes in the background. If, however, you do choose to create a journal to clear something, be very careful about making sure that you cross-reference the customer name. Let's go into a journal entry screen and let's notice the line items going across. You will see that there is a place for an adjusting entry. There is an individual report that will give you just these entries. The idea is to let you very quickly pull up anything that was making an adjustment versus any of the year-end journal entries such as provisions for income tax or the recording of depreciation. When things go wrong in QuickBooks, if you always mark things as an adjusting entry when you're crediting an invoice or correcting an accounts receivables, payables, or inventory, you can quickly pull up these reports to see if that's the culprit. Now, when you do choose to create these, do make sure that if you choose accounts receivable, that you fill in this name. The same thing will hold true with accounts payable. Make sure you write in the name of the vendor or the name of the customer. If you're using a class, make sure you cross-reference the class. If it is going to affect somebody as far as being billable, definitely make sure that you check that part also. Now, if you're using one of the lower versions or the entry versions of QuickBooks, you may not see this billable column. In those instances, it's even more important that you go back to the form and not to the journal entry in order to make your corrections.